Your decisions are your make or break. They either move you forward or they keep you stuck where you are. The thing is that making the best decisions takes practice. It takes intention and it takes consideration, which is something that as a manager, as a leader, you need to get courageous and confident with, because your ability to make good and best moment decisions is going to be the defining difference between whether you are a manager people actually want to follow or whether you're just mediocre and you stay stagnant in your career, which is why I am covering this in a podcast episode, because this is something that I talk about with a lot of my clients, and it's something that we need to actually work on, not just as managers or leaders, but as everyday people, is how to make decisions and how to do them well. So I'm going to try and keep this short and sharp so that I can help you become a better decision maker. Hey, I'm Tash, the Certified People Leadership Coach, helping you to become a leader people actually want to follow. Now, let's dive on in. Why does decision making matter? Every decision has a cost, whether it's a short-term or long-term cost. So we want to make the best of the decisions that we're making so that we can get the best short-term and long-term cost out of it. As humans, we're very good at discounting the long-term cost for the short-term benefit. And this has a really big impact on the way that we make decisions, because generally we make decisions that serve us in the short term, but we don't take enough consideration of what is it actually going to cost us in the long term. And so this is something that we're going to talk about in this episode. We also need to be really intentional and considerate with our decisions so that we can analyze them and we can figure out what decisions are working and what decisions aren't. Because when you're stepping up in your career, when you are taking responsibility for bigger teams, bigger budgets, bigger projects, your ability to make effective decisions is going to become the number one skill that you're going to be relied on. Whether that's by your team, whether that's by stakeholders, whether that's by your leaders, they are going to look at you and wonder how they're going to make these decisions. If you're wanting to take those bigger steps in your career, you're going to need to be able to articulate what your decision-making process is and how you do that really effectively and how you do it really well. The other reason why decision-making becomes more important as you're a manager is because your decisions now have a wider impact. They are now potentially going to impact your team, your stakeholders. It's going to have a bigger flow-on effect than just making a decision as an individual contributor. And so again, learning how to do this well is going to be really helpful for you. And lastly, decision-making is rarely done in isolation, yet so many of the decisions that we're making is in isolation, which actually has a really unhelpful impact and really keeps us stuck a lot of the time, because we put a lot of pressure on ourselves on having to be the best and the be all and end all of making decisions, but really that's not actually the case a lot of the time. The other reason why decision making is really important is because it is the only way that you move forward. Making a decision, whether one way or the other, is the only way that you are going to move forward, that you are going to make progress, that you are going to get better at what it is that you want to do. If you make no decisions, that is actually still making a decision. You're choosing to stay where you are. You're choosing to stay stagnant. You're choosing not to do the thing that you need to do in order to get to where you need to go. And this is something that a lot of people do. They get caught in decision paralysis. There's too many decisions. I'm overwhelmed by fear. I don't want to make the wrong decision. I don't want to lose out on where I am. I don't want all of these other things. And so they don't make a decision at all. But really that decision is that you're staying stuck. You're staying where you are. No decision is still a decision. And so you want to make sure that you are making decisions that are in your best interest, that you're making decisions that are in the best interest of the people around you, especially if you are a manager, that you're making decisions that are actually going to serve you in the long run as well as in the short term. How to make decisions. The first thing is you need to be crystal clear about what the decision is connected to. Why are you making this decision? Why is this decision important? Why is this decision necessary? What are you wanting out of this decision? That is the ultimate thing to think about. So in the context of work, what goal is it trying to achieve? What problem is it trying to solve? What result is it trying to get? Why does this decision matter? Now, I would argue that all decisions matter, but they matter on a different scale. They matter on a varied scale. If we think about decisions as a ladder, There are some that are at the bottom rungs of the ladder, not super important, yet they still make a difference to where we're going. Then there are the bigger decisions. They're the middle top of the ladder. They're getting us super close to that goal. They have more of a significant contribution towards our overall goal, towards our overall result. And they are those more significant decisions. But all decisions ultimately matter. Those kind of small, insignificant decisions that you're making day in, day out. Oh, I'll just eat these 5 cookies. But then tomorrow you're eating another 5 cookies. And then the next day you're eating another 5 cookies. In 3 months' time, all those cookies are going to compound and it's going to lead to weight gain. Or I've got a team member who's underperforming. They're not meeting expectations, but hey, I'm too busy today. I'm not going to deal with it. Oh, tomorrow they've missed this deadline. You know what? It doesn't matter. It's a small deadline. It's okay. I'm sure they'll pick it up. Then the day after that, there's another thing that this person does. But at the end of 3 months, that person is severely underperforming. This project is now in jeopardy. And there's a real performance issue in place, all because those tiny little insignificant decisions compound into what those big decisions are. And so this is something that we need to really think about is what are all these little decisions connected to? What are the big decisions connected to? Because they're all connected to something. It's just often we're not super clear about what that something is. So if you want to make better decisions, whether you're a manager, whether you're a parent, whether you are an individual, whether you are running a project, whether you're a CEO, you need to know what your decisions are connected to, even the small, seemingly insignificant ones, because they're all connected to something. The second thing, what is the short and long-term impact of this decision? What is the short-term and long-term impact of making this decision or not making this decision? This is the number one thing to think about. And this came up in my Leaders Lounge membership. If you want to know more about that, drop down into the show notes. It is the membership that helps you build your people management and leadership skills, helps you strategize in real time, and connects you with a community of people at the same stage. So if you want to know more about that, jump into the show notes and find out. But I was talking about this with a member of the Leaders Lounge. She's a people and performance manager. So she manages a team, and she was getting really caught up in needing to do focused work, so needing to do really deep strategy work, but then also just getting really caught up in getting emails done and helping her team and doing all of those things. And she asked me, like, how do I get it all done? Like, how do I make the decision between working on my strategy pieces of work, but then also getting through emails and helping my team? And I came back and said, which one is going to have the biggest long-term impact to the work that you're doing and to the outcomes that you're trying to achieve? And that stopped her dead in her tracks. Because yes, emails and quick answers and helping the team moment to moment has a short-term benefit because you're getting stuff done in the moment, but it has a long-term impact because she's not getting the meaningful, bigger impact work done. That stuff's getting pushed to the side, but that is the work that actually has the bigger long-term impact. That focus work, that strategy work, that time-intensive work is the work that actually has the biggest impact to her team, to the business, to the outcomes, to the strategy. And so we need to be prioritizing that work because it has the biggest long-term impact. Even though the emails and all that stuff has a short-term impact, it doesn't equate to the same level of impact. And so that is why thinking about this is really important. What is the short-term and long-term impact of making this decision or not making this decision? Of choosing this thing or not choosing this thing? So here are some examples. What is the short and long-term impact of me giving feedback to this person, even though I'm uncomfortable, versus ignoring it and not giving feedback? Short-term is I feel fine. I'm comfortable. I didn't have to do something uncomfortable. Long-term impact is that person doesn't get the opportunity to grow. They don't have the opportunity to do anything different and is going to impact their performance and development over time. Short-term and long-term impact. Another one, setting a boundary versus letting things slide. In the moment, I feel comfortable. I didn't have to tell someone that what they're doing is impacting me or that I'm going to do anything different. Versus the long-term impact is I become angry, resentful, and frustrated with this person, and I start to withdraw from our relationship. And that relationship starts to deteriorate. Short-term benefit, I'm comfortable in the moment. Long-term impact, that relationship deteriorates. Another one, come back to the work context. Addressing poor performance versus leaving it unchecked. Addressing poor performance is uncomfortable. It can feel scary. We might upset people. I don't maybe want to do that. But leaving it unchecked means that person's performance deteriorates over time. The team starts getting impacted because they're having to pick up the workload of other people. It's starting to impact their motivation. And then 3 months down the track, you need to now formally performance manage someone that potentially could have been avoided. Another one in the work context, making a fast hire versus being patient and getting the best fit person for the role. And I've seen this happen far more times than I can count. Managers make quick hires because right now we're struggling with workload. Right now, we need someone to fill that seat because there's just too much to do. But then they make a quick hire. They're not actually the best fit person for the role. And then 3 or 6 months down the track, they realize that it was not a good hire. We now need to performance manage, or we need to move them around, and then you're left with a vacancy again. Short-term impact versus long-term impact is a really key part of decision making. And as a manager, as a leader, as a person who wants to make more impact in your work, you need to learn to identify the short-term impact versus the long-term impact. And there can also be short-term benefit and long-term benefit. Short-term benefit usually is what keeps us most comfortable. And that creates the worst off long-term impact. And so we need to be really intentional about this. And sometimes it can be challenging for yourself to see the short-term or the long-term impacts and benefits because you might just be so in it. You might just be too close to that decision, or you might just be overwhelmed, or you might be feeling stressed. Seek out someone that you trust, whether that's your manager, whether that's your support team. Find people that can be in your corner that can help you with the decision-making process. Go to your team and help them with these decisions as well. Often as a manager, especially if you are quite new to your role or you're in those first kind of 4 years, there's this idea that you need to be the person that makes all the decisions or needs to know all of the answers to everything. You don't have to be. You're quite new to your role. Leverage your team, leverage the people that these decisions are also going to impact, and have them help you make those decisions. That is a really important way to build trust, respect, collaboration with your team. If you also show them that they can be part of those processes, you don't have to do this by yourself. So that is the second part, really important to think about. And actually, I just spoke about the third part, which is seek out trusted advisors and devil's advocates. Now, what I mean by that is often we seek out advice or guidance from people we know are going to agree with us. That can often be our natural tendency is to do that because we're humans and we want to fit in and all that stuff. But I also prompt people to get people who are devil's advocates in their space. So get people who will outwardly challenge you on the decisions that you want to make. So people that are going to ask you the uncomfortable questions, who are going to nudge you in uncomfortable ways to make sure that you're actually making really impactful decisions. If we only have people that appease us and tell us what we want to hear, we're not growing, we're not learning, we're not pushing the boundaries of the impact that we want to make. So we want to get people in our corner who are also devil's advocates, who can challenge us and actually question us and make sure that we're making the best decision, not just the decision that I think I want to make, and so you should agree with me. So that is really important. And this is also really important because you don't know it all. You don't have all of the experience. You're never going to think about all of the different scenarios or have all of the different perspective viewpoints. And having people in your corner that can play that role for you is really helpful. And the last thing that I would say here around making better decisions, becoming a better decision maker, is just make the decision, experience the outcome, and then use that information for your next decision. Something that I see too often is people don't make decisions because they don't want to get it wrong, which means that they don't actually get any information. The only way that you can figure out if a decision is quote unquote wrong, or if a decision is bad, or if a decision didn't work is if you make the decision and then review that outcome. That's the only way. That's the only way that you're going to know. That's the only way that you're going to get that information. Even if you were to go and ask people who made the same decision and ask them what happened, that isn't necessarily going to mean that that's going to be the outcome of your decision, because you are a different person. You are in a different context. You are at a different time. And so it's so important to build the practice, build the muscle, build the courage of making decisions and experiencing the outcome. That is the only way that we are going to really know whether something works, doesn't work, or needs to be tweaked. That's it. And so as you develop your management skills, your leadership skills, your courage, your confidence, all of that's done through figuring it out, doing it, giving it a go, and then using the information to decide whether it worked or not. It's the only way. That's the last point. Make decisions and then use the information to decide whether it was a good decision or not. I try not to be very binary with my good or bad, right or wrong, because I don't believe a lot of our decisions are inherently right or wrong or inherently good or bad. It's, did that decision work the ways that I wanted to? Did it help the way that I wanted to? Was it unhelpful? Did it not work? The more curious we can be with the way that we assess our decision making, the more we're actually going to get from that decision. Like the more information and learnings we're going to get from it, which is what we ultimately want. There it is. Those are my 4 aspects of how I believe that you can become a better decision maker. This is not convoluted with 10, 15 steps and blah, blah, blah. It's actually pretty damn simple. What is the decision connected to? What is the ultimate reason for this decision? And what is it going to move you towards? What is the short and long-term impact? Getting really clear about this. What is the short and long-term impact of making the decision and of not making the decision? Because both of those things has an impact. Seek out trusted advisors and devil's advocates. So seek out people who will validate your decision, and also seek out people who will challenge your decision to make sure that you're thinking about it as holistically and from a wider perspective as possible. And then lastly, learn to be courageous and practice making decisions. The more decisions you make, the more information you get, and then the better your decision can be next time. And just to finish off, I want to share 3 mindset reminders that I think can be really helpful. Number 1, decisions are rarely black and white, which is what I mentioned earlier. Make the decision and see what the outcome is, and then decide whether it was helpful or not, and then decide what you do next. Don't be afraid to get it wrong. The more afraid you are, the less risks you take and the less progress you make. We need to be willing to get it wrong. We need to be willing to take a risk so that we can get the reward of having more information. We need to be willing to do that. And ultimately, you will never know everything. So the more that you can experiment and figure it out and try, the better off you're going to be. And then lastly, you will only know more once you've made the decision. That's the beauty of hindsight. You only get hindsight because you made the decision in the first place. Hindsight is not available to you until you make the decision first. A lot of people go, in hindsight, yeah, you only have hindsight because you made the decision in the first place. So make the decision and then use that information to decide what you're going to do with it, and then make the next decision. That's it. Actually, just one more. You can only make the best decision in the moment with the information that you have. You can only make the best decision in the moment with the information that you have. Once you have more information available to you, you can then tweak that decision. You can then decide, actually, that wasn't the best decision. Now I'm going to make this decision. But you need to have information first. So there you go. As I mentioned, my Leaders Lounge membership is the best place for you to jump in, be surrounded by community, and to get active coaching from me every month to build your people management and your people leadership skills. So if you are looking for a way to grow your professional development, your personal development, you're looking for a way to develop in all of the skills that you need in order to be a better manager in a way that is affordable, accessible, and easy, then the Leaders Lounge membership is absolutely for you. So find out more by the link in the show notes, and I'll see you again next week.